Hello, gorgeous pagan people. My name is Eric, and this week I'll be substituting for Yaka here on the Pagan Perspective. This week we're answering a team member topic, and the question is simply, do you believe in fate? I don't think this is going to be too much of a long video from me, but I do have a few points that I want to talk about, and to answer the question briefly, yes, I do believe in fate, but I've sort of had to think about some other things in relation to this, because it kind of branches off into other conversations as well. If you see, like, fate or destiny in a dichotomy with free will, then I think that maybe, like, not so simply. So I guess when I define the word fate, I typically mean it in that Crowleyan idea of, like, true will. So, like, your purpose, your divine destiny. I don't think of it necessarily as every single thing in our lives being planned out from beginning to end. I think about it more as in, like, a constant direction in which we're moving. And so, for me, I think that, like, for me in my life, becoming a priest is part of my destiny, part of my fate. I think that's a thing that's going to happen, and I've felt that way for a really long time, that was my true will, was to be a priest and to be a teacher. So I think that, like, for me, I definitely believe in that idea of fate as a concept of when we're talking about that sort of thelemic kind of true will idea. So very much so, I do believe in fate. I think as well, like, my experience as a fortune teller really lends into this as well. Like, when you're laying the future out on a table in front of people, like, yes, your interpretation could be wrong, but the cards never lay wrong. And that's sort of something that I picked up through, like, Gordon White's mentorship. This idea that, like, the cards always lay properly. The cards are never in the wrong place. Like, if you look back in 6 months, you'll be able to construct the correct narrative from that reading. So I think that, like, for me, like, I do believe in sort of a future that is set in stone because of my experience with divination and fortune telling. That said, though, it did make me think about this idea of free will, and how that plays into all of this. Because when we talk about free will, right, we always have that, like, question about love spells and target-specific love spells and whether that's okay because, like, free will. And I think that's an interesting conversation to have. I totally endorse target-specific love magic, though. That's something I'm totally okay with. I think that when we're talking about, like, free will in terms of, like, spellcasting especially, I tend to think about it as, like, we're co-creating with the universe, right, with whatever spirits we're sort of interacting with, and so within my experience, it's like the rituals and the spells that we do, those are the things that give fuel to the spirits to allow them to make movement in our world. It's that principle Rune Emerson always talks about, which is light moves the dark. So the light of the spirits moves the manifest, the dark. So I think that in terms of, like, your free will and creating change, but is that change, are those spells already predestined? Like, who's to say? I think, though, that at least for me, it is much better for me to live my life in such a way as would ignore the belief that I have in fate. And the reason for that is, and I've spoken about this in the past, maybe on this channel, but definitely on my personal channel, I've spoken about this idea of how, like, I personally can fall into elevation of the spirit so much so that I forget to, like, take care of my mundane life and, like, make sure that I'm eating and, using my body and things, because I'd much rather be focused on intellectual or spiritual pursuits, and so, like, I tend to reject or ignore the physical side of me, and so I think that it's easy for me to be like, oh, well, that's just fate. It was fate that I didn't work out today. It was fate that I didn't eat well today. Whereas that sort of removes, like, not only my personal power, my ability to make change, but it also removes my, like, responsibility. And I think it's important that as a magician, we take personal responsibility for the way that things are in our lives. And of course, I'm not one who believes in karma, so not Western karma anyway, in this idea of what you send out comes back to you. That's not something that I believe in. So I think that, you know, there is always, like, you're not held responsible for what other people do, is kind of how I feel. So, you know, and what happens to you because of external influence, like, I don't think that's your fault. I think that to blame the victim is not really helpful in them sort of moving through whatever trauma they've experienced. So for me, I think, like, I need to have that mindset of I can make change, I can make things happen. It's only going to be me that makes my life better. I need to have that mentality just to be able to make sure that I stay grounded and realistic. Because, like, I always try to, like, come back to, I guess, like, a secular point of view and try to think about, like, what's in my best interest, really. So it's fine that I think that I have this belief in fate and that the future is sort of like static, but I also think it's important for me to still be active in my own life, which I can sometimes fail to do if I fall too deeply into that mindset, where it's like the spirits will take care of it and, like, it's all fated anyway, so I don't need to worry. That takes away my own initiative. So I think that that's all that I really want to say on this topic. So I will see you next week for Subs Week. Until then, I hope you're well. Bye. Mwah.